Let's have a look at the outcomes for GCSE Languages this year. And we actually saw total entries for modern foreign languages increase by around 1,000 or 0.4% to just under 300,000. Now that's actually at a time when the GCSE cohort is shrinking in size, so it's encouraging to see those entries up, particularly in German and Spanish, although there was a bit of a drop in French. And of course this year we saw the first of those new 9-to-1 qualifications in those three major languages, with other languages to follow over the next couple of years. And really encouragingly, if we look at the outcomes for those qualifications, they're really stable compared with last year. So actually they have edged up a touch, both at grade A or 7 and above, and at grade C or 4 and above. But broadly speaking, we're seeing really stable outcomes compared to the legacy specification. And that's exactly what we'd expect to see because of the comparable outcomes approach that we take to awarding those grades. And that makes sure that students haven't been disadvantaged just because they've been in the first cohort of the reformed qualifications. Now, if you want to understand a bit more about that grading process and how comparable outcomes works, then you can click through and watch a video on that now. Now, if we have a look at the split of entries across the tiers, it's quite difficult to compare accurately with last year because we don't have that mixed tier entry anymore. But we can see a definite shift towards foundation tier across all three languages. Now that's exactly what we would expect and hope to see really, because the tiers are now in a slightly different place and have shifted to cover a slightly different part of the grade range. So foundation tier now goes all the way up to a grade 5, whereas previously it was capped at a grade C on the legacy qualification. Similarly, the higher tier now only goes down to a grade 4 as opposed to the grade D that it previously went down to. Now, on the new 9-to-1 qualifications, below that grade 4 on higher tier, there is also an allowed grade 3 that's intended to be half the width of a standard grade. And that's really just there as a safety net to catch the small number of students who were rightly entered for the higher tier, but then underperformed on the day. What we actually saw this summer was that a larger than expected number of students underperformed on the higher tier and would have been at risk of falling off the bottom of that without achieving a grade. Now, because of that, Ofqual made the decision to widen the allowed grade 3 so that it was actually a full width grade. Now, that made sure for this year only that those students who would have fallen off the bottom were caught and were awarded a grade and recognised for their performance. But fundamentally, most of those students were performing at a foundation tier level and should have been entered for that tier. Now, it's important to understand that we are not expecting that these exceptional arrangements will be taken forward to next year. So if lots of your students got a grade 3 on the higher tier, then I'd suggest very carefully reviewing their performance and looking at those entry decisions, because it's very likely that some of those students should have been entered for foundation tier, not higher tier, and would be at risk next year of falling off the bottom and not achieving a grade. For more information on the structure of the new tiers, how we ensure standards across the tiers, and guidance on how to choose which tier to enter for, you can click here and watch this video now.